I'm the golden child. I get the family business. Because you're nothing without me, my brother said. Dad agreed. I quit and took the client list, which was mine contractually. Their revenue dropped 90% in a month. Dad called begging. I offered to buy the company for $1. So my brother actually said this to my face during a family dinner last month. Not joking. Looked me dead in the eyes and told me I was nothing without him and that he deserved the family business because he was the golden child. My dad nodded along, like this was just objective truth we all needed to accept. Spoiler alert, I quit the next morning, took every client I'd built relationships with over the past 5 years, and watched their precious company crater faster than the Titanic. But we'll get to that. Let me paint you the full picture here because this didn't happen in a vacuum. This was 28 years in the making. I'm 32 male. My brother Jason is 28 male. We grew up in one of those families where everything looks perfect from the outside, but is completely dysfunctional once you peek behind the curtain. My parents ran a mid-sized commercial landscaping company that my dad started back in the 90s. Nothing fancy, but it brought in steady money and employed about 15 people at its peak. From the moment Jason was born, he could do no wrong. And I mean literally nothing. This kid broke a window playing indoor football when he was 7. Dad laughed it off as boys being boys. I accidentally knocked over a lamp when I was 8, grounded for 2 weeks and had to pay for the replacement out of my birthday money. The double standards were so obvious, you could see them from space. When we were kids, the favoritism was annoying, but whatever. Kids don't really process that stuff fully. You just accept that life isn't fair and move on. But as we got older, it got more blatant and honestly more damaging. High school is where things really started to diverge. I busted my butt to maintain a 3.9 GPA while working part-time at a local nursery to save for college. I was genuinely interested in horticulture and landscape design, spent hours reading about native plants and sustainable landscaping practices. Thought maybe I could bring some fresh ideas to the family business someday. I'd spend my weekends at the nursery, learning from this old guy named Phil, who'd been in the business for 40 years. He taught me how to identify plant diseases, how to read soil composition, how to design irrigation systems that actually worked efficiently. I filled notebooks with sketches and plans, studying landscape architecture books I'd check out from the library because I couldn't afford to buy them. My reward for academic achievement? A pat on the head and a lecture about how grades don't matter as much as real-world experience. Meanwhile, Jason barely scraped by with a 2.3 GPA, never held a job, spent every weekend partying, and got constant praise for being social and building connections. Yeah, connections at keg parties definitely translate to business success. When I made honor roll every semester, I got a good job text from my mom. When Jason managed to pass algebra on his 3rd attempt, they took him out to his favorite steakhouse to celebrate. I'm talking about a $100 per person kind of place. They never even asked if I wanted to come along. Junior year, I entered this regional landscape design competition through my horticulture class. Spent 3 months on my submission, a comprehensive plan for converting a suburban yard into a native plant habitat that would reduce water usage by 70% while providing food and shelter for pollinators. Won 2nd place and a $500 scholarship. Know what my parents said? That's nice, honey. Didn't come to the awards ceremony. Didn't ask to see the design. My mom actually used my scholarship check to help pay for Jason's homecoming dance tickets and dinner because he really wanted to impress this girl. That same year, Jason made the JV basketball team. Not varsity. JV. As a bench warmer who played maybe 5 minutes total all season. My parents went to every single game, bought one of those custom jerseys with his number, put a bumper sticker on both their cars, made a Facebook album with like 300 pictures of him sitting on the bench. I brought up the discrepancy once, and my dad told me I needed to stop being jealous of my brother's achievements. Jason's achievements? Sitting on a bench. When I graduated high school, my parents gave me a card with $50 in it. Cool, thanks. When Jason graduated 4 years later, they threw him a massive party at a local venue, invited like 100 people, and gave him a brand new truck. A freaking Ford F-150 with all the bells and whistles. His graduation gift cost more than my entire first year of community college tuition. I pointed this out once, and my mom literally said, Jason just has more friends to celebrate with. You've always been more of a loner. Yeah, Mom, real supportive. Nothing says loving parent like calling your kid a loner when you actively exclude him from family celebrations. I went to community college because we couldn't afford a 4-year school. Or so I was told. Worked full-time at the nursery, took classes at night, graduated with an associate's degree in landscape architecture. No family at graduation because it's just community college, not a real university. The community college years were brutal, honestly. I'd work from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the nursery, grab a quick meal in my car, then head to class from 3 to 9 p.m. Some semesters I took online courses too, studying in the truck during my lunch breaks. I survived on energy drinks, cheap sandwiches, and about 4 hours of sleep a night. When I graduated, I invited my parents to the ceremony, told them weeks in advance. My mom said they'd try to make it if Jason's intramural soccer game didn't run late. They chose the game. Meanwhile, Jason gets a free ride to State University, where he changed his major 4 times and took 6 years to graduate with a business degree. 6 years. For a 4-year program. And they paid for every single semester without complaint while I was eating ramen and working 60-hour weeks. They paid for his dorm room, his meal plan, his textbooks, his spring break trips. When he changed his major from marketing to finance to management to finally business administration, they just nodded and paid for the extra semesters. No questions asked. I calculated it once. My entire 2-year community college education cost them $0 because I paid my own way. Jason's 6-year university adventure cost them close to $90,000. After I graduated, I started working full-time for the family business. Figured I'd prove my worth, you know? Show them what I could contribute. I started in the field doing actual landscaping work, planting, mowing, basic maintenance. Didn't matter that I had a degree. Dad insisted everyone needed to start at the bottom to understand the business. Funny thing though, when Jason finally graduated and came to work for the company 2 years later, he started in the office, never touched a shovel, never got his hands dirty, went straight to business development, which apparently meant taking clients out for lunch on the company card and calling it work. I worked my way up over 5 years. Field work to crew leader, to project manager to senior account manager. Every promotion I had to fight for had to prove myself 10 times over. I brought in new clients through actual networking, joined the local chamber of commerce, went to industry conferences, built genuine relationships with property managers and commercial developers. Those first couple years in the field were rough. 12-hour days in 100-degree heat, coming home with dirt under my fingernails. But I learned the business from the ground up. Learned what worked and what didn't. I specialized in sustainable landscaping solutions and native plant installations, which was becoming a huge trend. I could talk to clients about reducing water usage, creating pollinator habitats, using rain gardens for stormwater management. This wasn't just mowing lawns. This was comprehensive environmental design that saved clients money and helped them meet environmental regulations. My first major client was this property manager named Rebecca, who ran 3 office buildings downtown. I put together a proposal showing how we could reduce their water usage by 55% and cut maintenance costs by 30% using native plants. She loved it, gave us the contract for all 3 properties. That account brought in $78,000 in the first year and led to referrals for 6 more properties. Within 3 years of focusing on this niche, I'd brought in about 60% of the company's new business. These were major contracts: office parks, industrial complexes, mixed-use developments, multi-year maintenance agreements worth 6 figures annually. I had built genuine relationships with these clients. They trusted me. They called me directly with questions. I brought in this massive industrial complex account worth over $200,000 a year. The facilities director, Tom, had been dealing with another contractor who kept screwing up. I gave us a trial period on 1 building. We killed it. 3 months later, he gave us all 9 buildings in the complex. Tom would call me directly for everything. I had my cell number on that account because I knew it was worth taking care of properly. Here's the important part. When I negotiated my promotion to senior account manager, I made sure my contract specified that any clients I brought in were assigned to me. My dad signed off on it without thinking about the implications. I even had a clause that said if I left the company, I could take my client relationships with me as long as I didn't directly solicit them for 6 months after departure. Dad signed it. Probably didn't even read it fully. Big mistake on his part. Jason, meanwhile, spent those same 5 years accomplishing approximately nothing. He showed up late most days, left early for client meetings that were really just golf or day drinking. He brought in maybe 3 new clients total, and 2 of them were his college buddies who threw us some pity contracts. One of Jason's buddies owned this tiny office building, gave us the contract as a favor. Maybe $12,000 a year. Jason acted like he'd landed a Fortune 500 deal. Bragged about it for weeks. The clients Jason did interact with constantly complained. He'd forget to return calls, show up to meetings unprepared, make promises he couldn't keep. I spent half my time doing damage control. More than once, I had to personally apologize to clients he'd pissed off and offer discounts just to keep them from walking. There was this property manager, Linda, who managed a shopping center we'd been trying to land for months. Jason insisted on taking the meeting to prove he could close deals. He showed up 15 minutes late wearing wrinkled khakis, hadn't prepared at all. Linda asked about our approach to high-traffic areas. Jason literally said, "We'll just plant tougher plants." That was his whole answer. I jumped in and did the whole presentation while Jason checked his phone. We didn't get that account. Linda went with a competitor. She told me later she couldn't trust a company that would send someone so unprepared. But none of this mattered to my parents. Jason had a business degree and natural charisma, which apparently meant more than actual results. The fact that I was personally responsible for more than half the company's revenue was just details. Things really came to a head about 3 months ago. My dad called a family meeting on a Sunday, said he wanted to discuss the future of the business. I figured maybe he was finally going to acknowledge my contributions, maybe talk about a partnership structure. I'd been working there for 7 years at this point, had proven myself 1,000 times over. We sat down in my parents' dining room. Mom made her usual pot roast, which nobody really ate because the tension was too thick. Dad cleared his throat and dropped the bomb. He was getting ready to retire, wanted to transition ownership of the company within the next 2 years, and he'd decided that Jason should take over as CEO and majority owner. I just sat there, literally speechless. Jason got this smug little smile on his face like he'd won something. My mom was beaming at him like he'd just cured cancer. I finally found my voice. "Are you serious right now?" Dad did that thing where he got all defensive and authoritative. This is a family business, and Jason is the natural choice. He has the business education and the personality to lead. The personality? Dad, Jason has barely brought in any clients. Most of the property managers actively avoid dealing with him because he's so unreliable. Meanwhile, I've built this company's entire commercial portfolio basically from scratch. Jason actually laughed. Dude laughed in my face. "Come on, bro. You're good at the plant stuff. I'll give you that. But you don't have what it takes to run a business. You're not a people person. You're more of a back-end guy? Back-end guy. Like I was some IT support person and not the one keeping the whole operation afloat." My dad nodded along. "Jason's right. You're valuable to the company, don't get me wrong. We want you to stay on in your current role. But leadership requires different skills." I looked at my mom, hoping for maybe some pushback. She just smiled that same fake supportive smile she always did and said, "You boys will work great together. Jason can handle the business side, and you can focus on what you're good at." That's when Jason dropped the real bomb. He leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed, and said, "Let's be real here. You're nothing without this company. Without me running things and throwing you projects, you'd be unemployed. You should be grateful I'm willing to keep you on." I waited for my dad to correct him, to say something like, "That's not true," or "Show some respect to your brother." But Dad just sat there, didn't contradict him, didn't defend me, just nodded like Jason had made a perfectly reasonable point. My mom even added, "Jason's just being honest, sweetie. The company is bigger than any one person's ego." And that was it. That was the moment I realized I was done. Completely done. I didn't argue, didn't yell, just stood up, told them I needed to think about things, and left. Drove home to my apartment and spent the whole night going through my employment contract and my client files. See, here's what my family didn't understand because they'd never bothered to actually look at my contract. Every single client I'd brought in over the past 5 years was contractually assigned to me. The contract my dad had signed said clear as day that these were my accounts. And the departure clause said I couldn't solicit them for 6 months after leaving, but it didn't say anything about them following me if they wanted to. I pulled out my client list and started going through it methodically. 41 total accounts that I'd personally brought in and managed. Of those, 37 were major commercial contracts worth at least $20,000 annually. The other 4 were smaller but still solid businesses. I'd built real relationships with these people. We're talking property managers I'd known for years, developers who trusted my expertise, facilities directors who called me directly because they knew I'd take care of them. These weren't just names in a database. These were people who valued my knowledge and my reliability. I started making phone calls, not to solicit, just to check in. Asked how their properties were doing, if they had any upcoming projects. Normal relationship maintenance stuff that I did regularly anyway. Rebecca, that first property manager who'd given me a shot years ago, answered on the second ring. We chatted for a bit about one of her properties, some drainage issues they were dealing with. Then she said something that made my decision for me. "Everything okay with you? You sound stressed." I told her I was considering some career changes, Might be starting my own venture focused on sustainable landscaping. About time, she said without hesitation. I'll be honest, the only reason we stick with your dad's company is because of you. If you leave, we're leaving too. Just let me know where you land. That was the first one. I made similar calls to Tom, to this facilities director named Michelle who managed a tech campus, to David who ran property management for a regional retail chain. Same response from all of them. They worked with me, not the company. What I found out was enlightening. Turned out a lot of my clients had been getting increasingly frustrated with the company lately, billing errors that I used to catch and fix before they became problems. Poor communication from the office when they called with questions. Crews showing up late or not at all. All the stuff that happened when Jason's incompetence infected the parts of the business I didn't directly control. Michelle told me about this incident from 2 weeks prior. She'd called the office with an urgent issue, some vandalism in one of their landscape beds that needed immediate attention. Jason answered, told her he'd get someone out there that afternoon. Nobody showed up. She called back the next day. Jason said he forgot to log the work order and would get it done tomorrow. 2 more days passed with nothing. Finally, she called me directly. I got a crew out there within 3 hours, had the damage repaired by end of day, and sent her photos of the completed work. She told me if I ever left the company, she'd follow me anywhere because she was tired of dealing with Jason's nonsense. David from the retail chain had a similar story. Billing issues that kept recurring because Jason couldn't figure out our invoicing system. Double charges, missing line items, wrong properties listed on invoices. David said his accounting department was ready to drop us entirely until I personally took over handling all their billing. Several of them mentioned they'd been thinking about looking for new contractors. A few even asked point blank if I was happy with the company, like they were feeling me out to see if I was planning to start my own business. I didn't commit to anything on those calls. Just listened, took notes, started putting together a plan. I spent the rest of that weekend doing research, looking into business licenses, insurance requirements, startup costs. I already had most of the knowledge I needed. I'd basically been running the commercial side of my dad's business for years anyway. I just needed to formalize it. The more I looked into it, the more feasible it seemed. My overhead would be minimal at first. I could operate with a smaller crew initially, just handling the accounts I knew would follow me. I could work from a home office instead of renting space. The equipment I needed I could lease or rent until revenue justified purchasing. I ran the numbers about 15 different ways. Even in a worst-case scenario where only half my clients followed me, I'd be profitable within 6 months. And based on those phone calls, worst case didn't seem likely. On Monday morning, I went into the office early, printed out my resignation letter. Simple, professional, 2 weeks notice. Left it on my dad's desk before anyone else got in. Then I sat at my desk and waited. Dad showed up around 8:30, found the letter, and immediately came storming into my office. His face was red, veins popping in his neck. What the hell is this? It's my resignation. I think the wording is pretty clear. You can't just quit. We have contracts, projects you're managing. I'm giving you 2 weeks to transition everything. That's more than generous considering how undervalued I've been here. Jason wandered in then, coffee in hand, looking confused about the yelling. What's going on? Your brother is quitting, Dad said, like I was committing some unforgivable betrayal. Jason actually had the nerve to look relieved. Oh, well, that's probably for the best anyway. We were going to have to reorganize your accounts under the new structure. This just makes it easier. I just smiled. Yeah, about those accounts. That's when I pulled out my contract, slid it across the desk to my dad, pointed to the relevant sections. As you can see, the clients I brought in are assigned to me. And according to Section 7, Paragraph C, I'm allowed to maintain those relationships after departure as long as I don't actively solicit them for 6 months. The color drained from Dad's face as he read it. Jason grabbed the contract, scanned it, then looked at me like I'd just pulled a magic trick. You can't seriously be planning to take our clients, Dad said. They're not your clients. They're my clients. You signed this contract, Dad. You agreed to these terms. Jason got that panicky edge to his voice. But that's most of our big contracts. 63% of annual revenue, actually. I did the math. My dad tried to backtrack. Now let's not be hasty here. Maybe we can work something out. A partnership arrangement? Profit sharing. You had 7 years to offer me a partnership. You chose to give the company to someone who's contributed almost nothing while telling me I should be grateful to keep my job. So no, Dad, we're not working anything out. I stood up, grabbed my personal items from my desk. Pictures, a few books, my good stapler. I'll finish out my 2 weeks if you want help with transition documentation. Or you can walk me out right now. Your call. They chose to walk me out. Probably thought it would be some power move or something. Security escorted me to my car while I carried my box of stuff. Very dramatic. Very unnecessary since I'd literally offered to help transition my projects. As I drove away, I called my lawyer. Had him draw up incorporation papers for my new company. I'd been thinking about names during my sleepless night and landed on Sustainable Growth Landscaping. Simple, professional, clearly stated what we were about. Then I called my best designer from the old company, Cameron, this brilliant landscape architect who'd been as fed up with Jason's nonsense as I was. Offered him a 20% stake in the new company if he jumped ship with me. He said yes before I even finished explaining the plan. By the end of week 1, I had my business registered, a simple website up, business cards printed, and Cameron on board. I'd also secured a small business loan based on my projected accounts receivable. Banks love lending to people with guaranteed income, and I had contracts worth millions. Week 2 was interesting. My former company started to realize how screwed they were. I wasn't there to manage projects. Cameron had quit too. The field crews were confused because we'd been the ones who actually coordinated everything. Jason tried to step up but quickly proved he had no idea how our systems worked or what different clients needed. I got calls from 3 clients that week asking what was going on, not soliciting from me. They called me directly because things were already falling apart. Crews showed up to the wrong properties. Invoices had errors. Nobody could answer technical questions about the native plant installations I'd designed. I told each of them the same thing. I'd left the company but wasn't allowed to solicit them for new business for 6 months. I appreciated their loyalty, but they needed to make their own decisions about who to work with. I didn't pitch my services, didn't badmouth my former company, just stated facts. 2 of those 3 fired the old company on the spot and said they'd wait for me. The third said they'd stick it out for now, but asked me to keep them informed about my new venture. By week 3, my first official week as a business owner, my phone was ringing off the hook, more clients calling to ask about my plans. I gave them all the same spiel. Didn't solicit, didn't pitch, just provided information when asked. And they started jumping ship in droves. See, here's what my dad and Jason didn't understand about commercial landscaping contracts. They're not like residential where you mow lawns and plant flowers. These are complex, multi-year relationships built on trust and expertise. Property managers and facilities directors don't care about company names or fancy office spaces. They care about the person who shows up, knows their property inside and out, and solves their problems. That person had been me for 5 years. I knew every property's irrigation quirks, which areas needed special attention, what plants worked best in different microclimates. I knew which property managers wanted detailed reports and which ones just wanted things handled. I knew who to call at the city for permit questions and which contractors did the best work for hardscape projects. Jason knew none of this. My dad was retired in all but name, and the field crews, talented as they were, didn't have the relationships or the expertise to manage complex commercial accounts. Within 4 weeks of me leaving, my former company lost 23 major accounts. These weren't just any accounts. These were the big, profitable, multi-year maintenance contracts that kept the lights on. We're talking about office parks, industrial complexes, shopping centers, the bread and butter of commercial landscaping. Some came to me directly. Some went to competitors because they were frustrated and didn't want to wait 6 months for me to start taking new contracts. Either way, they left. I watched it happen through the industry grapevine. Commercial landscaping is a small world. Everyone talks. Property managers know each other. Word spread fast that I'd started my own company, that I was doing things right, that I actually gave a damn about sustainable practices and customer service. Meanwhile, my former company was hemorrhaging clients and couldn't figure out how to stop the bleeding. Jason tried to step up, but he was completely out of his depth, made promises he couldn't keep, bid projects at rates that barely covered costs because he didn't understand the actual work involved, pissed off the few remaining clients by being unreliable. I didn't have to do anything, didn't badmouth them, didn't steal clients, just existed as a better option and let natural market forces do their thing. My new company's first month revenue was absolutely wild. Even with the 6-month non-solicitation clause, I had clients who'd left my old company on their own and were willing to work with me through the interim. Some hired me as a consultant. Some brought me on for new projects at different properties, not covered by their old contracts. It was all completely legal and above board. Cameron and I were working 70-hour weeks but loving every minute. We hired 3 experienced crew members who'd also left the old company, people who were tired of Jason's incompetence and my dad's blind favoritism. We operated lean and efficient, with none of the bloat that comes from nepotism hires and legacy overhead. By month 2, my revenue was matching what I'd been bringing in at the old company. Except now, it was my company. My decisions, my profit. The calls from my dad started around week 5. First, they were angry. Accusations that I was violating my non-compete, which didn't exist because he'd never thought to put one in my contract. Threats of legal action that his lawyer quickly told him wouldn't go anywhere because everything I was doing was perfectly legal. When anger didn't work, he tried guilt. Long rambling voicemails about family loyalty and how I was destroying the business my family had built, conveniently forgetting that I'd built most of their current business and that they'd made it crystal clear I wasn't really considered family when it came to ownership. My mom called too, crying about how stressed my dad was, how Jason was overwhelmed. How could I do this to my own family? I almost felt bad until I remembered that family meeting where they all agreed I was nothing without them. Jason sent me texts that alternated between begging and hostility. Sometimes he'd try to appeal to brotherly loyalty, saying we could work something out if I just came back. Other times he'd call me selfish and accuse me of sabotaging him out of jealousy. Dude had absolutely zero self-awareness. I didn't respond to any of them, just focused on building my business. By month 3, I heard through the grapevine that the old company had lost about 90% of its commercial contracts. They still had some residential accounts, the small stuff that Jason's college buddies threw their way, but all the major revenue sources were gone. They'd had to lay off most of the field crews, couldn't make payroll some weeks, canceled their lease on the nice office space and moved operations to my dad's garage. The expensive new truck they'd bought for Jason got repossessed. It was a complete implosion. And honestly, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, no vindication. Just nothing. They'd made their choices. I'd made mine. The market had spoken. Month 4 was when things got really interesting. My dad called from a number I didn't recognize, so I actually answered. His voice was different. Smaller, tired, defeated. "We need to talk," he said. "Face to face, please." I almost said no, but curiosity got the better of me. "Fine. Coffee shop on Main Street. Tomorrow at 2. He showed up looking like he'd aged 10 years. Circles under his eyes, clothes that didn't fit right anymore. Probably lost weight from stress. Ordered a black coffee and sat down across from me without making eye contact. "The company's done," he said flatly. "We can't pay our debts. We're going to have to file for bankruptcy in the next few weeks unless we figure something out." I sipped my coffee. Said nothing. "I know I screwed up," he continued. "I know I should have valued what you brought to the table. I know. I know I favored your brother when I shouldn't have." "Okay." He looked up at me then, desperate. "Is there any way, could we work something out? Maybe you could come back. We could restructure." "No? Please, I'm begging you. The business is going to fail. Everything I built will be gone." "Everything you built?" "Dad, I built 60% of that business." 60. "I brought in the clients. I managed the relationships. I did the actual work while Jason coasted on nepotism. You didn't build that business. We built it together. And then you decided to give it all to someone who contributed nothing, while telling me I should be grateful to keep working for you." He winced. "I know. You're right. I was wrong. But please, there has to be something we can do." I thought about it. Weighed my options. I could let it fail completely. Walk away and never look back. Or, "I'll make you an offer," I said. $1. He blinked. "What?" "I'll buy the company for $1. You sign over all assets, all remaining contracts, the company name, everything. I assume the debts. You and Jason walk away clean." His face went through about 15 different emotions. Shock, anger, humiliation, resignation. $1? That's insulting. That's what the company is worth right now. Actually, it's worth less than nothing because of the debts. I'm offering to take on your liabilities and give you a clean exit. Take it or leave it. And what happens to me and Jason? I don't care. Get jobs somewhere else. Figure it out. Same way I had to figure things out when you decided I wasn't good enough to be part of the family legacy. He sat there in silence for a long time. I could see him doing the math in his head. Pride versus bankruptcy. Ego versus financial ruin. "I need to think about it," he finally said. "You've got 48 hours. After that, the offer expires, and you can sort out bankruptcy on your own." I left him sitting there with his cold coffee and his regrets. He called back 36 hours later. Accepted the deal. We met at my lawyer's office to sign the paperwork. My dad looked sick the whole time, signing away the company he'd started 30 years ago for the price of a candy bar. Jason wasn't there. Apparently, he'd already jumped ship, got some entry-level sales job through a family friend. Probably told everyone he voluntarily left to pursue other opportunities. I didn't ask. Didn't care. The asset transfer was pretty straightforward. There wasn't much left to transfer. Some equipment, a few small contracts, the business name and registration. Most of the valuable stuff had already been liquidated to try to pay bills. I consolidated everything under my new company structure. Kept the name Sustainable Growth Landscaping because it had better branding anyway. Took on about $40,000 in business debts that I paid off within 6 months from new contract revenue. Within 8 months of leaving my family's company, I had completely rebuilt and exceeded their peak annual revenue. Except now I owned it all. Cameron owned 20% like I'd promised. We brought on 2 more junior partners who'd proven themselves invaluable. We now employ 23 people. We're the premier commercial sustainable landscaping company in the region. Property managers specifically seek us out because they know we deliver quality work and actually care about environmental impact. 3 months after the buyout, Rebecca called me with a massive opportunity. Her company was expanding, buying out a competitor's portfolio of 12 commercial properties across 3 cities. She wanted us to handle all the landscaping for the transition. $700,000 over 2 years. I took the contract to celebrate with the team, rented out this nice restaurant, gave everyone bonuses. Cameron pulled me aside and said this was the kind of deal my dad's company could never have landed because they didn't have the capacity or expertise. He was right. 6 months after that, Tom referred me to his company's regional director. They were rolling out a sustainability initiative across 43 properties in 5 states. Wanted a contractor who actually understood native ecosystems and could implement consistent standards across multiple climates. The contract was worth $2.3 million over 3 years. We had to hire 12 more people just to handle the expansion. Opened a second office. Bought our own equipment instead of leasing. Started training programs for our crews on sustainable practices. This wasn't just a landscaping company anymore. It was becoming an actual operation. My parents and I haven't spoken since the paperwork signing. Jason tried to add me on LinkedIn a few months ago, which I found hilarious. I didn't accept. Then last month something happened that made the whole thing feel complete. I was at an industry conference. Same one where I'd met Rebecca years ago. Ran into Linda, that property manager who'd rejected us because of Jason's incompetence. She recognized me immediately. Told me she'd been following my company's growth. Was impressed with what we'd built. Then she said her company was looking for a new landscaping contractor for their entire portfolio. 15 properties. 15. Would I be interested in bidding? I sent her a proposal the next week. Professional, detailed, competitive pricing. She awarded us the contract without even getting competing bids. Said she'd seen enough of our work through industry connections to know we were the right choice. The same account Jason had blown years ago because he couldn't be bothered to prepare. Now it was mine. Week after that, I got a call from an unknown number. Answered it thinking it was a client. It was my mom. She started with the usual guilt trip. How my dad's health was suffering from stress. How Jason was struggling in his new job. How the family was falling apart. Then she got to the real reason for the call. My cousin was getting married next month. Big family wedding. Everyone would be there. She wanted to know if I'd come, if maybe we could talk, work things out. I told her I'd think about it and hung up. Talked it over with Cameron that night. He said whatever I decided, the team had my back. But he also pointed out that showing up might send the wrong message. Like I was willing to pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. I decided not to go. Sent my cousin a nice gift and a card wishing her well. Didn't mention why I wasn't attending. Let my parents explain that one to the extended family. My mom called again after the wedding. Apparently, everyone had asked where I was. My dad told people I was too busy with work. Jason told people we had a disagreement, but were working it out. Nobody told the truth, that they'd written me off as nothing, and I'd proven them spectacularly wrong. She wanted to meet for coffee. Said my dad had things he wanted to say. I told her I'd consider it, and never called back. 2 weeks ago, we signed the deal with that major developer I mentioned. The one with 5 properties and the 10-year maintenance agreement. Contract value over the life of the agreement is $4.1 million. Biggest deal in company history. We took the whole team out to celebrate. 23 employees, all of whom had jobs because I built something real instead of coasting on family connections. Cameron gave a toast about how we'd gone from 2 guys with a truck to a regional powerhouse in under 2 years. During the celebration, my phone buzzed. Text from Jason. First time he'd contacted me directly since I left. Saw the announcement about your developer contract. Congrats, that's huge. I stared at it for a minute, thought about responding, thought about being gracious, maybe opening a door to reconciliation. Then I remembered him sitting at that dining room table, smirking while he told me I was nothing without them. Remembered my dad nodding along. Remembered years of being treated like I was lucky to have a job at a company I'd built. I deleted the message and put my phone away. Yesterday, Cameron and I met with investors about opening a third location. They loved our growth trajectory, our client retention rates, our reputation in the industry, offered us a capital injection that would let us expand into 2 more states. We're considering it. Would mean more hiring, more equipment, more complexity. But it's the kind of problem I always wanted to have. Too much success to handle with our current capacity. Meanwhile, I heard through that same industry grapevine that my dad's consulting work dried up. Word got around about what happened with his company. Clients don't want to work with someone who ran a successful operation into the ground through poor judgment. Jason's apparently on his 3rd job since leaving. Sales isn't working out for him. Turns out when you can't coast on family connections and actually have to produce results, things get harder. My parents sold their house and moved into a small condo across town. Nothing tragic. They're fine financially from the home sale, just not living the lifestyle they'd gotten used to. And me? I'm sitting in my actual office. Not my dad's garage, not a rented space, but an office we own in a building we're buying, looking at contracts worth millions, managing a team that respects my expertise, building something that's entirely mine. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true. Mom smirked. She loves him, not you. Let him have the house and money. I signed the divorce papers instead and took everything. Hey, Reddit. So my mom told me to hand over my wife to my brother at the dinner table, while everyone just sat there like this was normal family business. Let me back up because this story is wild, and you need the full context to understand just how messed up my family really is. I'm Nathan, 32 male, and I've been the family ATM for as long as I can remember. My younger brother Kyle, 29 male, has always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, the one who got endless chances and blank checks while I got lectures about responsibility. Classic middle-class family dysfunction, except I was funding it with my actual money. Growing up, the favoritism was so blatant, it would make a reality show. Producer, blush. Kyle got a car for his 16th birthday, a decent used Honda that my parents were so proud to give him. I got a lecture about responsibility and a bus pass. When I asked why the difference, my dad said I needed to learn the value of hard work. Kyle apparently didn't need that lesson because he was still finding himself. I worked through high school at a hardware store, saved every penny, and bought my own car at 17. A beat-up Toyota that leaked oil and had a tape deck that ate every cassette I put in it. My parents praised Kyle for accepting their gift graciously. They told me my car was embarrassing, and I should park it down the street when their friends came over. College was the same story. I got a partial scholarship and worked 2 jobs to cover the rest. Graduated with $15,000 in student loans that I paid off myself within 3 years. Kyle went to a private school that cost $60,000 a year because he deserved the best education. My parents covered 2 years before the money ran out. Then guess who got the phone calls? Nathan, your brother really needs to finish his degree. Can you help out? Just $20,000 to get him through senior year. We'll pay you back. They never paid me back. Kyle dropped out anyway in his 5th year to pursue his passion for photography. The $40,000 camera equipment I bought him is probably gathering dust in my parents' garage right now. My parents, Joyce and Harold, have this twisted worldview where Kyle deserves everything because he's sensitive and needs support, while I'm expected to finance their lifestyle because I'm strong and successful. Translation: I worked my butt off building a tech consulting firm, while Kyle bounced between failed ventures that I bankrolled. The double standards didn't stop at college. When I started my business 7 years ago, I asked my parents for a small loan, $10,000 to cover initial expenses. I had a solid business plan, letters of intent from potential clients, everything. My dad looked at me like I'd asked him to rob a bank. Nathan, we can't just hand out money. You need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. What if the business fails? We'd lose everything. 2 months later, Kyle wanted to open a food truck. No business plan, no experience in food service, just a vague idea about artisanal grilled cheese. My parents gave him $15,000 without blinking. The food truck lasted 3 months before Kyle got bored and abandoned it. I ended up buying the truck from him for $8,000, just so my parents wouldn't lose their entire investment. The truck is currently parked behind my office building. I use it for company events. Kyle uses the story to tell people he inspired my success. Then there's Ashley, my wife of 10 years. The woman who supposedly loved me, who kissed me goodbye this morning and told me she'd see me at my parents' house for dinner. The woman I trusted with everything. We met in college, one of those meet-cute situations where she spilled coffee on my laptop in the library. I was pissed until I looked up and saw her standing there, genuinely apologetic, offering to pay for repairs. We started talking. She was sweet, funny, ambitious, studying communications with dreams of working in public relations. I fell hard. Proposed after 2 years of dating. She said yes without hesitation. The wedding was small. My parents complained it wasn't fancy enough, that I should have spent more to make Ashley feel special. I'd already dropped $30,000 on the event, money I'd saved from my first year running my business. Kyle was my best man. He got drunk at the reception and hit on 3 of Ashley's bridesmaids. Everyone laughed it off as Kyle being Kyle. Our marriage was good at first. Ashley supported me while I built the business, or at least that's what I thought. She stayed home, worked on her graduate degree in marketing that I paid for, managed our household. I worked 80-hour weeks, traveled for clients, did whatever it took to make the business successful. And it worked. Within 5 years, I had 20 employees and revenue in the 7 figures. Ashley finished her degree but never really pursued work. Said she wanted to focus on starting a family. That's where things got complicated. We tried for 3 years to have a baby. 3 years of negative pregnancy tests, doctor appointments, fertility specialists. Ashley took it hard. Harder than I did, honestly. Every month when her period came, she'd lock herself in the bathroom and cry for hours. I tried to be supportive, told her we were enough, that a baby would come when it was meant to, that we could look into other options if needed. But the pressure from my family made everything worse. My mom would make comments at every family dinner. "Still no news?" she'd ask Ashley, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "You know, you're not getting any younger. Maybe you should try harder. Try harder." Like Ashley wasn't already taking hormones that made her sick, wasn't already tracking every cycle, wasn't already doing everything humanly possible. Kyle, of course, made it worse. He'd joke about how he was too fertile and needed to be careful because babies just happened around him. My parents would laugh. Ashley would excuse herself to the bathroom. I started declining some family dinners just to spare her the humiliation. That's when my mom started calling me selfish for putting my wife before my family. About 6 months ago, things shifted with Ashley. She seemed lighter somehow, less stressed about the baby thing. Started spending more time at the gym, getting her nails done, smiling at her phone. I figured she was finally accepting that maybe kids weren't in our cards, that she was focusing on herself again. I was relieved, honestly. Thought we were getting back to being just us. Looking back now, all the signs were there. The late-night study groups for a class she'd already finished. The weekend girls' trips that Kyle coincidentally was also absent for. The new lingerie I definitely didn't buy her. But I trusted her. I trusted my brother. I trusted that my family wouldn't betray me in the worst possible way. Shows what I know. So picture this. Sunday dinner at my parents' place. Nothing unusual. Mom made her famous pot roast. Dad opened some fancy bottle to celebrate Kyle's latest business idea that would inevitably need my checkbook. Standard family gathering. I walked in and immediately noticed something off. Ashley and Kyle were sitting next to each other, which was weird because Ashley usually sat next to me. Mom was bustling around with this satisfied smile that made my stomach turn. Dad wouldn't look at me. "Sit down, Nathan," Mom said, gesturing to the chair across from Ashley. "We have something important to discuss." I sat. That's when I really looked at Ashley. She had this glow about her, and her hand kept drifting to her stomach in this protective way. My brain started connecting dots I didn't want to connect. "Nathan," Mom started, slicing her pot roast like she was about to discuss the weather. "We need to talk about your marriage." I looked at Ashley. She was staring at her plate. "Your brother and Ashley are in love," Mom continued, her tone matter of fact. "She's 4 months pregnant with Kyle's baby. They want to be together, and we think the mature thing is for you to step aside gracefully." The words hit me like a freight train. I actually laughed. One of those shocked, disbelieving laughs that sounds borderline unhinged. "Excuse me?" Kyle finally spoke up, his voice defensive. "Nathan, man, we didn't plan this. It just happened. You're always working, always traveling. Ashley needed someone who was actually there for her." 4 months? I repeated, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. "You've been sleeping with my wife for 4 months?" "Longer than that," Kyle said, and there was this edge to his voice, this smug satisfaction. "Almost a year, actually." But she's been pregnant for 4 months. Ashley still wouldn't look at me. She just sat there, picking at her food, letting Kyle speak for her. I turned to my parents. Surely they'd be furious. Surely my mom would be screaming at Kyle for this betrayal. But mom just took a sip of her drink and looked at me like I was the one being unreasonable. Nathan, think about this logically, she said. You're a career man. You built a successful company. You can survive on your own. Kyle needs stability. He needs a family. And this baby, this is my grandchild. My flesh and blood. I'm your flesh and blood too, I said, my voice rising. Ashley is my wife. Technically, Dad finally spoke, not even bothering to look up from his plate. But the marriage is over, isn't it? You two have been growing apart for months. We've all seen it. Kyle makes her happy. Just look at them. I looked. Kyle had his arm around Ashley now. She was leaning into him, her hand on that small bump I hadn't noticed because I'd been working 80-hour weeks to pay for everyone's lives. The nausea was overwhelming. We need to discuss logistics, Mom continued, like we were planning a vacation. Kyle can't just move into some rental with a baby on the way. He needs stability. We think it's best if you move into that downtown condo you own. Leave the house to Kyle and Ashley. My mouth fell open. You want me to give them my house? It's Ashley's house too, Mom said dismissively. Community property and all that. Besides, you have plenty of money. You can buy another one. Don't be greedy, Nathan. Greedy. The word echoed in my head. I had paid off my parents' mortgage 3 years ago. I bought them their cars. I funded Kyle's 5 different business ventures that all crashed and burned. I paid for Ashley's graduate degree, and I was greedy for wanting to keep my own home. The house is in a great school district, Mom added. Close to us so we can help with the baby. It just makes sense. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly against their hardwood floor. Sit down, Mom commanded. We're not finished. I'm finished, I said, grabbing my keys. This is insane. If you walk out that door, Kyle said, his voice dropping to what he probably thought was an intimidating tone, you're proving exactly why Ashley left you. You care more about your assets than family. You're cold, Nathan. Always have been. I care about loyalty, I said, my voice shaking. I care that my wife has been sleeping with my brother for a year while I paid all her bills. Lower your voice, Mom hissed. What will people think? I looked at them, really looked at them. My parents, orchestrating this betrayal like it was some kind of merger. Kyle, smirking because he was finally getting what he thought he deserved. Ashley, still silent, still refusing to meet my eyes. I'm not giving you the house, I said clearly. And I'm not giving Ashley a divorce without a fight. Yes, you will, Mom said confidently. Because if you don't, you'll lose this family forever. Do the right thing, Nathan. Be the bigger person for once. I walked out, didn't run, didn't slam the door, just left with whatever dignity I had remaining. The drive home was a blur. I kept replaying the scene, looking for the moment where this became a sick joke. But it wasn't a joke. My wife was pregnant with my brother's baby, and my parents thought I should just hand over my house and move on. When I got home, to the house I bought, that I'd renovated myself, I just sat in the driveway for a while. The lights were off inside. Ashley's car was still at my parents' house. This was my space, and suddenly it felt like a crime scene. I went inside and started looking. I don't know what I was searching for exactly, but I needed evidence that this was real. In her nightstand, I found a jewelry box I'd never seen before. Inside was a silver charm bracelet I didn't buy her. Each charm told a story I wasn't part of. A tiny baby shoe, a heart with 2 initials, K and A. In the bathroom trash, buried under tissues, was a positive pregnancy test. 4 months old, based on the date scribbled on the wrapper. Her closet revealed more secrets. New clothes with tags still attached. Expensive brands I definitely didn't buy. A receipt tucked into a shoebox for a romantic dinner at the nicest restaurant in town, dated 3 months ago. I'd been in San Francisco that weekend for a client meeting. In her laptop, which she'd left open on the kitchen counter, I found email threads between her and Kyle going back 14 months. Subject lines like, "Can't wait to see you," and "Last night was amazing, and when are you going to tell him?" I read through them all. Every single one. Torturing myself with details I didn't need to know. They'd first hooked up at my parents' anniversary party last year. I'd been there the whole night, completely oblivious. They'd snuck away while I was talking to my uncle about investment strategies. The affair escalated quickly after that. My business trips became their opportunities. Family dinners became foreplay. They'd text each other sitting across the table from me, making plans for later. I sat on our bed, my bed now, I guess, and tried to process everything. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of building a life together. And she'd been with Kyle for one of those years. How many family dinners had I sat through while they were laughing at me? How many times had I paid for Kyle's latest failure while he was sleeping with my wife? My phone started buzzing. Messages from my mom. Nathan, don't be dramatic. Come back so we can discuss this like adults. You're hurting Kyle. He's very sensitive about this. Ashley is crying. She needs support right now. I blocked her number. Then Kyle. Bro, I know this is hard, but Ashley and I are in love. Real love. You'll understand someday. Blocked. Ashley finally. Nathan, please, we need to talk. I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened. Kyle was there when you weren't. I stared at that message for a long time. She was blaming me for her cheating. Classic. I didn't respond. Just set my phone on silent and opened my laptop. First call, my lawyer. Left a voicemail that I needed to see him first thing Monday morning. Second call, my accountant. Same message. Third call, my best friend Sam, who happened to be a family law attorney. Sam picked up on the second ring. Nathan, what's wrong? I told him everything. The dinner, the pregnancy, my parents' demand that I hand over my house. He was silent for a long moment. Nathan, I need you to listen to me very carefully, he said. Do not leave that house. Do not sign anything. Do not engage with any of them. I'm coming over right now, and we're going to build a case that will destroy them. I don't want revenge, I said. But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. Yes, you do, Sam said. And you should. What they're doing isn't just cruel. It's fraud. If they're trying to pressure you into giving up assets, that's financial coercion. We can use this. Let me help you. Sam showed up an hour later with a briefcase and a digital voice recorder. We spent the next 4 hours going through everything. Finances, property deeds, text messages, everything. Here's what we know, Sam said, making notes. The house is in your name only. You bought it before the marriage with your own money. In most states, that makes it separate property. Ashley's name is on the mortgage refinance from 2 years ago, I said. Did she contribute to the payments? No, I paid everything. She was in grad school. Sam smiled grimly. Even better. We can argue she has no legitimate claim. And if she's been cheating for a year, we can push for a fault-based divorce. That means she gets nothing. What about my parents? What about them? They have no legal standing in your marriage. But if they've been helping facilitate the affair, if they've been pressuring you to sign over property, we can explore harassment claims. At minimum, we cut them off completely. I nodded. The shock was wearing off, replaced by cold calculation. I want to audit everything, I said. Every dollar I've given them. Every business venture I've funded for Kyle. Every bill I paid. I want it all documented. Sam grinned. Now you're thinking like a lawyer. Document everything. Record every conversation. Don't delete any messages. They're handing you the evidence to bury them. Monday morning, I was at my lawyer's office at 8. By noon, I had filed for divorce citing adultery. By 2, I had frozen all joint accounts. By 4, I had sent cease and desist letters to my parents demanding they stop contacting me about marital assets. Ashley called me 17 times that day. I didn't answer. Kyle sent me a long text about how I was overreacting and ruining everyone's happiness. I screenshotted it for my lawyer. Mom left a voicemail calling me selfish and ungrateful. I saved it. That night, I changed the locks on my house. All of them. Garage code, front door, back door, everything. Around midnight, Ashley showed up with Kyle. I watched them from my security camera, standing on the porch, trying keys that no longer worked. Nathan! Ashley screamed, pounding on the door. This is my house too. You can't lock me out. I called the police. Told them my estranged wife and her affair partner were trespassing. The operator asked if I felt threatened. I said yes. 2 patrol cars showed up within 10 minutes. I watched from the upstairs window as officers talked to Ashley and Kyle. She was crying, pointing at the house, probably explaining how unreasonable I was being. One officer came to the door. I opened it with my lawyer on speakerphone. Sir, is this your residence? The officer asked. Yes, solely mine. My name is the only one on the deed. Your wife claims she lives here. She did. She also committed adultery with my brother, and I filed for divorce. Here's the documentation. I handed him copies of the filing. He read through them, then looked back at Ashley and Kyle. Ma'am, you need to leave the property, he told Ashley. This is a civil matter. You'll need to work it out through the courts. But my clothes are in there. My things. The officer looked at me. I nodded. She can retrieve her personal items with a police escort. Tomorrow, after I've had a chance to document what's hers versus what's mine. Ashley's face crumpled. Kyle tried to argue, but the second officer shut him down. You need to leave now, or you'll be arrested for trespassing. I watched them drive away in Kyle's beat-up sedan, the one I'd helped him buy last year. The next day, Ashley came back with 2 officers and my mom. I had already packed all of Ashley's clothes and personal items into boxes. Everything she'd brought into the marriage. Her graduate degree materials, her jewelry, the charm bracelet Kyle gave her. What about the furniture? Mom demanded, looking around at my living room. I bought all of it, I said calmly. Before we were married. It's mine. The law says this is my separate property, purchased with my premarital assets, I interrupted. My lawyer confirmed it. She's welcome to take anything she can prove she bought with her own money. Ashley looked around the house. At the couch I'd saved for months to buy. The dining table I'd refinanced from an estate sale. The TV I'd gotten as a work bonus. She owned none of it. This is cruel, she whispered. What's cruel is sleeping with my brother for a year, I said. What's cruel is letting me pay your student loans while you were planning to leave. Take your boxes and go. She left with 3 boxes of clothes and some books. That was it. 10 years of marriage, reduced to 3 cardboard boxes. My mom stayed behind after the police left. Nathan, you're making a mistake, she said. Family is everything. You can't just cut us off. Watch me. What about the baby? That's your niece or nephew. That's Kyle's problem, not mine. We raised you better than this. I laughed, actually laughed. You raised me to be a checkbook. Well, the checkbook is closed, permanently. You'll regret this when we're gone, she said, her voice shaking. The only thing I regret is not doing this years ago. She left. I closed the door and locked it. Over the next few weeks, my lawyer, a guy named Thomas, who specialized in high-asset divorces, worked magic. We discovered that Ashley had opened a credit card in my name 2 years ago. Maxed it out on random purchases. That was fraud. We found that Kyle had borrowed $70,000 from me over the years for businesses that never materialized. All documented in bank transfers with notes like for Kyle's restaurant and Kyle's app idea. But it got worse. Thomas hired a forensic accountant who went through every financial record with a microscope. What we found was staggering. Ashley had been siphoning money from our joint account for over a year. Small amounts at first. 200 here, 300 there. Nothing I'd noticed with money coming in and out for business expenses, but it added up to over $40,000 transferred to an account I didn't know existed. That account? Jointly owned by Ashley and Kyle. They'd been planning this for a long time, building a nest egg with my money while plotting to take my house too. Thomas also found that Kyle had used my social security number to apply for business loans. 2 of them, totaling $90,000, had been approved. The businesses failed within months, and the loans defaulted. My credit score had taken a massive hit, and I had no idea why until Thomas uncovered the paperwork. This isn't just infidelity, Thomas said, spreading documents across his conference table. This is systematic financial abuse and fraud. We're talking criminal charges if you want to pursue them. I wanted to pursue them. We compiled every receipt, every payment, every financial transaction that showed the clear pattern. I funded their entire lifestyle while they betrayed me. Thomas filed motions for everything. Fraud charges against Ashley. Collection proceedings against Kyle. Financial disclosures from my parents showing I'd given them over $300,000 in the past decade. They're going to fight this, Thomas warned me. Let them. I have receipts for everything. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Ashley's lawyer tried to argue she deserved half of everything because she supported my career by managing the household. Thomas ripped that apart in court. He showed that we had a cleaning service I paid for, that I did my own cooking, that Ashley's management consisted of spending my money on grad school and personal expenses. Then he brought up the affair. Ashley's lawyer tried to claim it was irrelevant. The judge disagreed. Mrs. Wilson, the judge said, peering over his glasses, you engaged in an extramarital affair with your husband's brother. You became pregnant with the paramour's child while still married. These facts are absolutely relevant to questions of spousal support and asset division, Ashley cried. The judge was unmoved. Kyle showed up to one hearing, trying to support Ashley. Big mistake. Thomas had him served with papers right there in the courthouse. A lawsuit for the $70,000 he owed me, plus interest. You can't do this, Kyle shouted. That was a gift. Your text messages say otherwise, Thomas replied calmly. You specifically promised to pay it back once your businesses succeeded. None of them succeeded. Time to pay up. Kyle couldn't pay, obviously. He filed for bankruptcy within a month. My parents tried to intervene, calling the judge's office to complain about my vindictive behavior. That earned them a lecture about inappropriate contact and almost got my mom held in contempt. The final divorce decree came through 3 months later. Ashley got nothing. No alimony, no property settlement, nothing. The judge found that her adultery and fraud negated any claims she might have had. She was ordered to pay back the credit card debt she'd fraudulently incurred. Kyle was ordered to pay child support for the baby that wasn't mine. My parents were ordered to stay away from me. I'd gotten a restraining order after Mom showed up at my office screaming. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. The fallout was spectacular. Kyle and Ashley got married in a quick courthouse ceremony. No reception, no honeymoon. They moved into my parents' house because neither of them could afford rent. Living together destroyed whatever fantasy they'd built up during the affair. Turns out sneaking around is a lot more exciting than actual domestic life. My cousin Mike, the only family member I still talk to, kept me updated on the disaster. They're fighting constantly, he told me over coffee one day. Ashley expected Kyle to provide for her like you did, but Kyle's broke. He can't even pay for his own phone bill without asking your mom for money. And my parents are okay with this? Mike laughed. They're miserable. Your dad had to go back to work part-time at 67 because they can't afford to support 2 adults and a baby on their retirement savings. Your mom complains constantly about Ashley leaving dirty diapers everywhere and eating all their food. The schadenfreude was real. Kyle tried to get a job. Multiple jobs, actually. But his resume was a graveyard of failed ventures and gaps in employment. Nobody wanted to hire a 29-year-old with no real work experience and a criminal record for fraud. Oh yeah, I pressed charges for the identity theft. Kyle got convicted, received 2 years probation, and had to pay restitution. Since he couldn't pay, the court garnished the wages from whatever job he could get. He ended up working at a fast food place for minimum wage. The same guy who used to brag about being too entrepreneurial for traditional employment was now asking people if they wanted fries with that. Ashley, for her part, discovered that being a stay-at-home mom isn't the luxurious lifestyle she'd imagined when you're living in someone else's house with no money. She'd gone from shopping at high-end boutiques to clipping coupons. My mom, who'd orchestrated this whole disaster, was living her own nightmare. She'd imagined being the doting grandmother, hosting family dinners where everyone celebrated Kyle and Ashley's love. Instead, she was raising another child at 65, while her son and daughter-in-law fought about money and blamed her for ruining their lives. Because here's the thing, Ashley cheated on Kyle too, just like she cheated on me. Ashley cheated on Kyle, Mike told me over coffee 6 months after the divorce, with the same personal trainer from her gym. DNA test proved the baby isn't his either. I almost felt bad for Kyle. Almost. He lost it, Mike continued. Showed up at your parents' house screaming. Tried to throw Ashley out. She called the cops. He got arrested for domestic disturbance. The DNA revelation was the nuclear bomb. Kyle had destroyed his relationship with me, blown up his life, and gone into debt. All for a baby that wasn't even his. My parents were stuck with a daughter-in-law they couldn't stand, a grandchild that wasn't genetically related to them, and a son who blamed them for encouraging the relationship in the first place. The beauty of it was, I didn't have to do anything. They'd destroyed themselves. Sounds like a mess. Your mom keeps asking me to talk to you. She thinks if I ask, you'll help them. What did you tell her? I told her you're done. Some bridges, once burned, turned to ash. Mike was a good guy. About 8 months after the divorce finalized, Dad's health took a turn. Years of stress, from working past retirement age, from housing 2 adult children who hated each other, from watching his golden child fail spectacularly, caught up with him. He had a heart attack on a Tuesday morning, survived it, spent a week in the hospital, came home weaker than before. My mom called me from the hospital. I let it go to voicemail. Nathan, it's your mother. Your father had a heart attack. He's asking for you. Please, whatever problems we have, he's still your father. Please come. I deleted the message. She called 7 more times that day. I blocked her number. Kyle tried next, leaving a voicemail that somehow managed to be both pleading and accusatory. Nathan, Dad's in the hospital, man. He needs you. I know we've had our issues, but he's our father. You can't just abandon family when things get hard. That's not who you are. I laughed at that one. Kyle lecturing me about abandoning family. The same Kyle who stole my wife. The irony was almost beautiful. I didn't go to the hospital. Sent flowers with a card that said, wishing you a speedy recovery. Professional, impersonal, done. Dad came home from the hospital but never really recovered. Mike said he mostly sat in his recliner, watching TV, while the house fell apart around him. Ashley and Kyle fighting in one room, The baby crying in another. My mom stressed beyond capacity trying to hold it all together. The man who'd told me I needed to learn the value of hard work was now watching his golden child work at a fast food joint while living in his basement with a wife who couldn't stand him. 6 months later, Dad had another heart attack. This one he didn't survive. Mike called to tell me. Didn't ask if I was coming to the funeral. Already knew the answer. Are you going to the funeral? He asked anyway. No. Your mom's asking for you. She can keep asking. I didn't go. Sent flowers with a card that said, condolences to the family. Professional. Distant. Done. Part of me felt bad about that. Dad wasn't the worst father in the world. He'd taught me to change a tire, helped me with math homework, showed up to some of my baseball games, but he'd also chosen Kyle over me at every opportunity, enabled Kyle's failures, and sat silently while my mom demanded I give my wife and house to my brother. At some point, being a decent father in small moments doesn't outweigh being a terrible father in the moments that mattered. Mom tried one last time after the funeral, showed up at my office building, made it past security somehow. She looked old, fragile, the kind of fragile that's supposed to make you forget how they hurt you. Nathan, she said, tears streaming down her face. Please, I'm sorry. Your father's gone. Kyle won't speak to me after the whole Ashley situation. I'm alone. I'm your mother. Please don't abandon me. I stood there in my office lobby, my assistant hovering nearby looking uncomfortable. You abandoned me first, I said quietly. At that dinner table. You chose Kyle and Ashley. You called me greedy for wanting to keep my own house. You enabled them to betray me. You don't get to come back now because your plan failed. I made a mistake. I was trying to help both my sons. No, I interrupted. You were trying to maintain control. You saw me as a resource, not a son. And when I cut off the money, suddenly I became worthless to you. That's not true, isn't it? When's my birthday, Mom? She blinked, confused by the change in topic. When is it? I pressed. She hesitated. June? July? March 14th. I'm 32 years old, and my mother doesn't know when I was born. The reality of that hung between us. But I know Kyle's birthday, I continued, because you threw him a party every year. I know when Ashley was due because you called me weekly with updates. I know every detail of their lives because you never stopped talking about them. But you don't know basic facts about me because you never cared to learn. Nathan, do you know what I do for work? Not just tech consulting? Do you actually know what my company does? Silence. Do you know my favorite food? My best friend's name? The last vacation I took? More silence. You don't know anything about me except my bank account balance. And now that the account is closed, you have no use for me. You're making a mistake. Family is everything. I thought about Sam, who'd helped me through the divorce without asking for anything. I thought about my team at work, who'd celebrated my birthday even when I tried to keep it quiet. I thought about Mike, who kept me sane through all of this. You're right, I said. Family is everything. I just finally found mine, and you're not in it. Security escorted her out. She tried calling a few more times over the next months. Left voicemails about how Kyle had moved out, how Ashley had moved back to her parents' house in another state, how she was alone in that big house with memories of what could have been. I never called back. Eventually, Mike told me she'd sold the house. Couldn't afford it on Dad's pension and Social Security. She moved into a small apartment in a senior community. Last he heard, she was telling the other residents about her successful son who lives out of state, and her troubled son who she's trying to help. In her version of events, I was the villain who abandoned the family. Kyle was the victim who needed saving. Some people never learn. I threw myself into work after all this, grew my business 40% in 1 year, hired more people, stopped funding anyone's dreams but my own. About a year after the divorce, I ran into Ashley at a coffee shop. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, baby strapped to her chest in one of those carriers. She saw me and froze. I nodded politely and walked past her to order my coffee. Nathan, she called out. I turned. Can we talk, please? I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 10 years. This stranger who destroyed my trust. No, I said simply. I'm sorry. I know I messed up. Kyle and we're not together anymore. He couldn't handle that the baby wasn't his. I'm alone. I'm struggling. The government assistance barely covers anything. I just need... Ashley? I interrupted gently. I don't care. Her face crumpled. But we were married. We had a life together. You were always so generous. Always helping people. Can't you help me? Just this once? For old times' sake? You spent a year sleeping with my brother while I paid your bills. You tried to take my house. You committed fraud against me. There are no old times worth remembering. I made a mistake. I was confused. Kyle manipulated me. Kyle didn't manipulate you, I said. You're both adults who made choices. Now you get to live with those choices. Please, Nathan. I have a baby to feed. Then get a job. You have a graduate degree that I paid for. Use it. I took my coffee and left while she stood there crying. The old Nathan would have stayed, would have written her a check, would have felt guilty for weeks. The new Nathan kept walking and didn't look back. It's been 2 years now since that dinner. I'm doing well, better than well, actually. The business is thriving. I bought a house in the mountains, away from the city, away from memories. I'm seeing someone. Elena. She's a graphic designer I met at a conference. We've been together for 8 months, and she doesn't know about my money. Doesn't care about it. She likes that I'm handy around the house, that I can fix her laptop when it crashes, that I make her laugh. We're taking things slow, and for the first time in my adult life, I'm not anxious about being used. She met Mike last month. They got along great. She asked me why Mike was the only family member she'd ever heard about. I told her the truth, told her everything. About Ashley and Kyle, about my parents' betrayal, about choosing myself for once. She didn't judge, just held my hand and said, "Good for you. Some people don't deserve access to your life." That's when I knew she was different. Last week, Mike called with news. Kyle got arrested for insurance fraud. Tried to file a fake claim after his car got stolen. The car I'd co-signed for 3 years ago, that he still owed payments on. He called me from jail, Mike said. Wanted me to ask you for bail money. What did you say? I laughed and hung up. That's the thing about being the family ATM for so long. When you finally close the account, people get desperate. They try everything. Guilt, threats, sob stories, medical emergencies. But once you see them for what they really are, once you understand that they never valued you beyond your bank balance, it becomes surprisingly easy to say no. Kyle's facing real jail time now. The judge wasn't sympathetic to a repeat offender with a history of financial fraud. Last Mike heard, he's looking at 18 months minimum. Ashley moved back to her home state with the baby, working as a receptionist at a dental office, living with her parents who are equally thrilled about the situation. She deleted all her social media after people from our old circle kept commenting about the drama. My mom still lives in that small apartment. Mike says she's bitter, telling anyone who'll listen that her sons abandoned her in her time of need. She never mentions her role in destroying both her sons' relationships, never acknowledges that she's the architect of her own loneliness. I don't feel bad for them. I paid my dues. I funded their lives for years while they treated me like a convenience. When I finally stood up for myself, they called me cruel. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.